Okay. Hi, hello everyone. Welcome. So something I found out from editing last week's video is that the live chat won't reappear on YouTube if I edit it. So I think starting today, we're going to start doing the streams where we're going to kind of start right out the gate. So I don't know if that means we'll have more of a chat or like a 3-minute before the stream starts, like in the text chat, but I think from now on we'll just kind of jump right into it. So hello everyone, I'm Timothy Von Rueden, better known as Vonnart Online, and I'm joined by my boyfriend Josh.
Hello.
Who will be acting as our lovely moderator for the day. And today we're doing another follow along live stream. So today is a little different than our normal 90-minute studies because I actually have a worksheet for you guys to download. So it is the one that you see on the screen here. So this is the Cintiq that I'll be working on today in the Photoshop file. You can download it either by going on our Discord in the stream follow along channel, or there's just a direct link to the Dropbox files. It should be in the description below. So if you want to go ahead and download those, and maybe we'll wait just like a minute or two so that people can get those all set up, and I'll kind of explain what's going on today and yeah, any new updates. So I will say last week we did a how to draw crystals. So then this week is more or less how to color and or paint crystals. Now, I'm very old school when it comes to digital art. I feel like I learned how to paint, and that is the process that we learned. But from me watching more of these TikToks and all these youngins that are doing digital magic, I've learned that a lot of it now is done with just the selection tool and creating shapes, filling it in with a gradient, and doing the details very last. So I'm going to explore some of that today. I have a few different crystals, and each one we're going to treat a little differently. And then the fifth one, we're going to kind of push all of those techniques into one crystal. So let me go ahead though. For those of you who have downloaded the file, I did decide, normally I like working on a neutral gray background, but I feel like this was a little too dark for the stream once I saw it. So if you want to just make a duplicate of that layer by grabbing it and dragging it to the new layer icon, and then with that layer selected, man, I'm so used to doing Command U, but if you're not used to doing shortcuts, just go to Image at the very top, Adjustments, and Hue Saturation. And we're going to change the lightness plus 50. That way it's easier to see on the stream, and it will be easier for you guys as well. Now, normally I like working on a neutral gray instead of a white, pure white, because you can see not only the values more clear, but the hue and the saturations become a little less daunting, because if you're working on pure white, like a neutral, more mid-tone can appear really, really dark. And then your darks, your actual darks, will appear like black. So I think it's better to start on a neutral so that your lights and your shadows feel more imbalanced with one another. Okay, so if you guys have the references downloaded and if you guys are ready to go. Also, if you have any comments or questions, what?
We forgot our timer.
No, we don't need a timer today.
We're not doing a timer?
No, because like I said, today is a little different. So it's not a 90-minute one, because each one will probably take roughly 15 minutes. So it might even be a shorter stream, depending. The fifth one might take like 20 to 30 minutes, because that one's a little extra if you looked at the references already. And yeah, we'll just kind of jump into it. But if you do have any comments or questions during the stream, please put @Vonnart, and that way Josh can see it right away. And we'll be answering any questions that you guys have. Or even if it's not directly art related, if you want to ask just random fun questions, we're here for that too. Really anything is up for grabs, but I will just be kind of teaching along the way. And hopefully we'll have some fun and you'll learn some tricks and tips to carry with you after the stream. Okay, so we're going to start with the first crystal. So the first crystal, if you look at the reference, it's like this strawberry citrine. I forgot the official name for this one. All the other ones I kind of know, but for some reason I forgot this one because I know it's not pure citrine, but it has this like slightly orange, like a strawberry blonde color to it. Now for this one, you may have noticed it's the only one that I actually like really drew with the pencil all the way through. So it kind of looks like a black and white study of the crystal. Now the reason I did that is because, like I said, each crystal I want to approach differently, and this one would basically be, or the approach for this one would basically be how to color something that's already shaded and already has kind of the value and the detail put on it. So whenever I import a pencil drawing, I almost always change it to multiply first, as you can see here. Now from here, I'm gonna make a new layer below it. And this one is going to be my local color, essentially. So a local color is basically the color of an object, regardless of what object or subject matter it is, with like as neutral lighting as possible. So if you look at, let's think of something that would be more of like a, what's in this room that would be a good example? Like a plant, like the leaf of a plant. The local color of it, so with no direct light, no harsh shadows, would be that green, depending on what leaf you're looking at. But the local color would be green. And then when you start adding all these bounce lights and direct lights, obviously the color of that green is going to change depending on the light source and how it's affecting it. So crystals are a little different because they're almost all translucent and they're kind of bouncing color all around and light is being bounced within it. So you kind of have to average what you believe the local color will be and then kind of paint on top of that. So the other thing that makes this way easier, not only the selection tool, but also I'm going to teach you guys how to mask if you don't already know. And we're going to be using that for basically all of the crystals here. So if you want to make sure you know how to mask, I'm going to teach you right now. So the easiest way that I've learned to do it is you take your, I think this is the magic wand tool, and you select in the background. And if you can see it's selecting too much of the area around the crystal, then it needs either a higher or lower tolerance. In this case, I believe it needs a higher. Yes. So you can see how it's selecting. It has that magic marching ant tool around the entire crystal. And then from here, you're going to inverse it. So select on the top bar, choose inverse. And now it's selecting everything within the crystal, so the contents within the crystal. So if you still have that layer selected, click the masking tool button on the very bottom. And now when you try to paint, it'll only paint within the crystal, which is exactly what we want. Now in this case, let me choose my normal brush here. And I try to do the most basic brushes for all of these tutorials, but in this one I actually did include I think I call it a chaos brush, but it's meant for crystals. So you can download that as well in the Dropbox pack. And I'm going to be using that on our second example. But on this one, I'm going to be just using mostly a circle brush and a soft edge brush. So I'm going to kind of grab somewhere in the middle, somewhere that looks a little more neutral, and just paint within. So you can see how, because the drawing layer is set to multiply, you still get all the detail from the pencil marks, but now underneath of it, it kind of has this kind of base color that you can work on top of. But with the first layer selected, I'm going to also grab some of these other colors that kind of dominate certain parts of the crystal, and I'm going to make it a complete soft brush. So the bottom of the crystal, I can see in the reference that it has more of this light, kind of a very washed out orange color, and then right here where it's reflecting, we get some of that too. And if I'm going too fast, please let me know. Sometimes I have a tendency to just go. And I'm going to try to, keep it at a pretty easy pace to follow here. So you can see, even with just a few simple brush strokes with a soft edge brush, we're already kind of getting the look of the crystal that we're going for. Now, this is, once again, if you already have it kind of drawn out and you're just painting basically underneath. But let's say you don't really like the color of the graphite. Well, let me show you what you can do if you kind of want to get rid of the grayness of the graphite. Make a new layer above the drawing layer. Actually, I'm going to call this drawing layer so that I can always reference it as that. And I'm going to remask that same one that we had before. So to copy a mask, all you do is you hold Command on a Mac, I believe Control on a PC. Click the mask layer and choose the button for masking again. And you can see how it recreates it in our layer. And that's kind of how you can tell if you did the mask correct, if it has this black and white mask thumbnail to the right of your layer. But we don't want to be working in that mask layer or else we'll mess it up. So make sure you always click the layer to the left of it and it's highlighted with those bracketed I guess, brackets. And from here, I'm pretty sure the way that I usually like to do this is changing it to color. Yes. Okay. Oh, actually, I kind of like the gradient.
Yeah, actually.
Down there. So you can see how before and after, you can kind of change the tint of the pencil values here. Now I'm going to actually keep the bottom of it a little more light. Now, another extra challenge, if you really want to push yourselves here, is I was always taught not to just color pick from a reference image. And I'm doing it for stream purposes, otherwise the stream would be a little longer, because choosing pure color, so if I open up, oh, not my brush, I want my colors. Oh, where is it? It says it's open somewhere.
Oh no.
Oh, there it is.
Oh my gosh.
Way
so
over
far
on our
away.
screen. So the way that I was taught on how to do color digitally and how to understand it is you're supposed to kind of eyeball what you think the color will be and then choose it in your selection tool. Now, the reason that I was taught this way in school, I mean, I was frustrated at the time, but now I understand, is because then you start to really understand and observe and analyze color, and you're able to interpret it then. Because if you rely too much on a photo, you're not really understanding the color you're choosing or where it sits on the value scale or the saturation scale. Instead, you're just kind of copy pasting. And for studies like this, it's fine because if you're learning like how to use brushes or how to get comfortable in digitally painting in general, I totally get it. But if you're specifically trying to get better at working with color, I definitely recommend trying to choose your own colors in this box rather than just pulling it from a photo. Okay.
Anthony says I'm having issues masking a layer.
I guess my question would be, are you working in Photoshop? Because I know some other programs like Krita or Paint Studio is a little different. So that could be the reason. But if you are working in Photoshop, if you could be as specific as you can with your problem, and I will do my best to help you out of that situation. Okay. So you can see the difference before and after with that color layer. It's like a slight tint, but sometimes it can go a long way. And then from here, I think I would just do, the normal kind of painting and edging. So if I wanted to like highlight certain areas, and if I really wanted to get rid of my pencil marks, I'm making sure that I'm painting on a layer above the drawing layer. You know what? I'm going to make the drawing layer green so that we always know above or below, because it is important, especially if you're still kind of getting used to working digitally, of where those layers are. And I'm kind of one of the worst people with naming my layers. So do as I say, not as I do kind of scenario here. Because there are some files where I have like no joke, hundreds of layers. And I definitely get lost pretty easily. But sometimes when you're in the flow, like I totally get if you're just going from one to the next and, you don't always have the motivation to name every single layer that you create. And even here, I'm working just with a really small circle brush. And I'm looking at that reference. And I'm just seeing where some of those scratches or some of those details are. And I'm just pulling them out.
All right, so Anthony says I'm working in Photoshop on a PC.
I guess, where are you stuck? Are you getting the layer mask at all, or is it not? Or is the selection tool grabbing it? I guess I can go through it one more time for you, but like I said, there might be some shortcuts that are a little different because I work on a Mac, so a lot of the shortcuts are like Command and then a button, where for you it might be Control. Oops. So let me do that really quick after I just edge out some more details here. Oop. So after you kind of add these more rough textury details, that's when you will start to get more of that realistic look to your crystal. Now, the other problem though is sometimes when you do the masking tool, you kind of run into this problem where you have a very kind of gross looking edge. So the easiest way to fix it, well, the one that I'm most familiar with is literally just taking either an eraser tool, if it was all a flattened layer, or just grabbing, if in this case we have a neutral background, so I would just grab that neutral gray and literally just go around and edge it out. Now, me learning from all these TikTok videos though, most kids would still recommend working with a selection tool. And to be honest, I'm so not used to doing this method, but it does seem to be the most efficient. As much as I want to be stubborn and be like, oh no, the way that, that I did it was definitely the way to go. Oh no, do I have to do that again? Oh. See, this is me basically proving that I'm not used to doing this. But I have seen some of my friends do this method and it works so well for them that it's hard for me to debate that it's not as time efficient as just painting it. So watch. So now if we select all that excess around here, choose my neutral gray again, and when you deselect, see how it gives that nice hard edge? And sometimes if you want more of a soft edge, obviously you can go back in and either with the texture brush or with the soft edge brush, kind of give it a little bit more of that roughness. But I will say I have learned wonders with using the selection tool. And it's something that as I do more digital painting, I'll probably utilize more in my work. And I want to kind of share that with you guys because as much as I love the old way of painting everything, it isn't as time efficient as doing a selection tool and grabbing large sections of color and value. So yeah, so I guess we'll move on to the next one, but you know what, I'm gonna do one more layer mask really quick. Oh, that's right, I was gonna show you how to do it.
Yeah, the masking, right?
Yeah, okay, so make sure you make a new layer first. So step one, make a new layer. And then in this case, we're going to go back to our magic wand tool. So it is the fourth one down from our toolbox on the left side. Click the background and you should see a marching ant selection around the crystal. Now this is selecting the area outside of the crystal. So as you can see, if we paint, it's not painting within the crystal, it's painting basically around the crystal. So to paint within, you got to inverse our selection. And to do that, go to the top, go to select and inversed. And now when you paint, it should be only within the crystal. And then from here, if you don't want the marching ant selection tool there the entire time, just go to the bottom of our layer menu bar and click the one that looks like a circle and a rectangle. And that's our adding layer mask button. And make sure that you have the left side of the layer selected, not the right. Because the right will edit the actual mask, left will be our actual layer to work within. And that is how you mask. So hopefully that helps. I know sometimes these kind of tricks and shortcuts in Photoshop can get a little confusing if you're not familiar with the software as much. But I promise the more that you use it, the more that you will get comfortable with it. And some of it just does take a little bit of time. Okay, I did a little bit of a soft light layer to kind of end it off, give it a little bit more of a glow. And that is our first crystal. Now, obviously, like I said, I probably could clean up some more of these areas, but I think we'll save the detailing for our last crystal. And that is just an example of how to paint over and under a pencil drawing. So that is our first example. And I guess before I keep moving so quickly, I'll kind of check in with you to make sure there's no comments or questions.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say, well, Anthony says I rewinded to try and figure it out, but it didn't help. I wonder if it's just something separate for Windows. There's got maybe just...
because I had a PC that I worked on primarily after basically when I graduated college till like I was 27, and I was primarily PC. Actually, until I got the cord for the Cintiq to this Mac, I was all
that's
PC.
right. You were doing it just
So it should be the exact same. It might not be command whatever I was using. I don't think I even used it though. I think I tried to use all the toolbars.
I was gonna say, do you think we could try to get the? Because right now we're just capturing Photoshop, not the screen. Because if we do the screen, it'll show the.
It's capturing the screen. See.
Well, and I think it might be just doing Photoshop though. Because if we had the screen, it would show the top bar too.
Oh, I took that out so people don't see like my Dropbox syncing or any of that.
Because anytime you do something at the top there, it won't show it.
Well, when I say top menu bar, they should know.
Okay.
It's like the top menu one. Okay. Well, I hope we can figure that out with you, Anthony. Just know that it shouldn't be different. So hopefully it was just an error along the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the second crystal here.
And then let's see. Hang on. Yeah, we'll take our time on this one because I think everyone was kind of getting in a little bit late too. So I feel like, because I was like, I feel like I missed an hour, but it's just 10 minutes.
I know, I'm moving pretty full because we got 5 of them to do. So I'm trying to move a little quicker so it's not like a 5-hour stream. Because I still want to look at your guys' work at the end and do a critique and see how you guys kind of paint. And obviously, these are just different ways you can. I'm not saying these are the only ways you can paint a crystal. These are just different ways that I've kind of seen or adapted with, and I wanted to share them with you. So with our second crystal, I'm trying to think if I want to copy the drawing layer for each one. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So I think I might copy the drawing layer for each crystal just so I can kind of separate them. Like this could be number 1. Oh, shoot. See, this one's a little more difficult for me to try to do 5 on the same page because I want you guys to always be able to see my layers menu, but I want to have it kind of cleaned out each time. Well, I guess, no, we can do that because you guys don't need my layers at the end. So I'm going to actually merge these down. I know this is like a... Oop. This would be a cardinal sin in the art world. But I do this all the time. So I'm going to put the results from our first crystal. I kind of flattened it, and there we go. So that's our first one. So you don't have to do any of that. I'm just doing that so you guys can still see the end results of each crystal, and that we have a working file that's nice and clean for each one as well here. Okay, so for number 2. So our second crystal, actually I'll put this below. So for our second crystal, this one is an amethyst citrine, and the way that I wanted to angle it is so that the top plane is basically reflecting the light almost perfectly. And I like that it has this very sharp angular look to it. And this one we're going to be basically working purely with a selection tool. So I kind of gave a small example with the first one, but now we're really going to lean into that and kind of paint almost the entire thing with just that tool and then a texture brush. Now this way I learned from my friend Devin. She is really good about using selection tool and like doing large shapes, or even oh boy, why can't I think of his name right now?
Justin.
No, in Florida.
Oh,
Dustin.
Dustin, yeah.
Yeah, Dustin uses this as well, and I was watching his Instagram, and he almost entirely uses only selection tool for like even characters or creatures, and then he fills it in with gradients, and then he does details. So I'm noticing this trend within how to paint digitally, and it's something that I am not used to. And I was doing some test runs this morning, and I can kind of see why. It does save a lot of time. And as much as I love painting the old school way in Photoshop, I can understand why this is kind of taking off. Okay, so for our second crystal, let's primarily use, which one is this one called? The polygonal lasso tool. So this creates straight edged selections. And obviously for a crystal like this is perfect. When we get to crystal 4, that's basically all texture, and that's going to be handled way differently. But for this one, where you can literally angle off areas and section it off. Oh, you know what? I should zoom in. What am I doing?
Actually, I was just to say, because I know Galaxaris asked if you could zoom in just a little bit.
Yeah, let me see my OBS just so I can...
Perfect.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys. I think sometimes when I work digitally, I'm a little more stressed because I'm such a traditional artist that I have to like remind myself, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So if that happens throughout the stream, I apologize in advance.
I feel like you're so used to like hunkering, you're like staring at the screen like really close. Yeah, so for you, it looks super zoomed in. Yeah, I didn't say.
Oh, you mean here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so using this tool, basically select each corner of the crystal to the best of your ability.
I'm interested to see how this works. I don't think I've seen this.
Oh yeah, so this is the thing that I keep seeing all these artists do, and I was like stubborn. I'm thinking like, no, you should be painting it the old school way, as if you were using oils and brushes and blah blah blah. So basically, you just selection it out, and there you go, you're done. That's it.
Wow.
All right, moving on to the next. And then from here, you can do a few things. You can either start selecting each of the faces and coloring them, but I think I'm going to change the local color of this a little bit first. So I'm going to grab certain colors around this crystal. Oops. Oh, that's right. You know what? First, make sure this is like a simple way of masking without doing the whole masking layer and creating another layer. All you do is if you have everything in one layer or on your layer that you want to paint within, in the layer menu, there's a lock on the very top here. If you click, what do they call this one? Lock transparent pixels, you'll only paint within the pixels you have on that layer. So here, basically, it's the same thing as masking, but you don't have an extra layer to work with. But the problem is, it's a little harder to undo it if you need to. But I feel pretty confident that I won't need to do it. Famous last words. So basically, I'm imagining as if there's no highlight on this crystal yet. And I'm imagining what the colors would look like without any of that highlight. That is kind of stripping all the way through here. Man, we got some intense highlights on the side here. Like that. Now, I think I'm going to do this before. Yes, I am going to do this before. So I'm going to do a quick texture pass underneath of all the highlights we're about to select with the selection tool. So I'm going to change my brush. And you guys can download this, like I said, in the pack below. And it looks like this. So it's a very crazy looking edged out brush. Now what I like about it is if I change it to multiply, if I do, mask it out first. Oops, come on, there we go. So if you do a nice light pass down, you can see how it creates a lot of that fractaling within. Change my opacity down. And now we have a little bit of texture within the crystal before we even add in the actual planes of the sides of the crystal here. Okay, so make a new layer, go back to our selection tool, and now this is where we're literally going to edge out each of those sides. So I'm going to start with the middle one. It's the most prominent, and make sure I'm precise here. I'm going to switch back to my soft edge brush. Is this on a new layer? Okay, it is. Yeah, so I try to make new layers for each of these so that it's easier to edit them if I need to. Okay, you can see how literally just by doing that, we're already starting to create some dimension within it. Let's make another new layer, and let's do the top of the crystal. This one actually has a pentagon. It's a very small shift. Actually, I'm gonna make it a little lighter. Then basically we're going to do it for each of the planes here. Do the bottom one.
That brush is really cool that you have for
the
the texture.
Brush.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how it's starting to look more like a rupee, and it's pulling out different edges here. And it's funny, the way that I used to paint, I would literally edge out every single edge with a brush and try to make it look as perfect as possible. But I'm now a believer of the selection tool. I'll probably still revert to working with painting when I do it from time to time, but I think when I do at least the start of a painting, I'll work more with the selection tool because I can't deny how quick it can make the actual process. And as a lot of us artists, time is always seemingly fleeting, and we want to make sure we're utilizing it to the best of our ability. There we go. So when you zoom out, right, we're getting more of that crystal look.
Yeah, that was definitely in time. It took a lot quicker with that.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how you can do that with other things. I mean, this is just a very simple kind of faceted crystal, but I've seen people do it with like characters and other things where I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. So I'm making a quick overlay layer using my chaos brush again, kind of painting over, creating more of that internal fractaling, as you can see there. Now my favorite part, which is, let me see, do I need to make it darker? Yeah, I guess I'll make it a little darker on the bottoms. So when I drew these references last night on the couch, I was holding them perfectly at me, and then the photo is slightly tilted because I wanted that shine going down the center. So that's why the crystal looks a little longer than the reference. There we go. And if ever that fractal brush feels too much, just turn down the opacity. And then from here, this is where I'm going to go back to, so my chalk brush is my other favorite brush to work with. In here, I can kind of edge out, I'll work a little lighter here, where those facet, or where the sides of the planes actually meet. Make it feel more like a crystal. And sometimes I'll overemphasize these just because it can really help create the illusion of, you know, a shiny crystal. Or sometimes references aren't as, you know, shining and gleaming as a fantasy drawing. And I know sometimes people like to do like lines going down like this, just to add a bit more of a glare, more of a sheen to it. I'll sometimes add just like a couple very, very light ones. And then also if you want to add little scratch marks with the highlight, you can do that as well. So you can see how that will also kind of create the look of a crystal. Now, as I'm looking at this, it does have kind of these harsh scratch kind of irregularities to it. So working with my same brush, this is more of like the detailing phase. And since I'm kind of nuts about this stuff, I love doing rendering and detailing. You can add this on as well.
Oh, happy Wednesday, and Anne Miri.
Happy Wednesday.
Hello. Thank you for the pronunciation. I just want to make sure I'm saying everyone's names right. Jonathan says, I think it's safe to say the next book is getting some crystals, gems included. You sold it to me.
They're just fun to paint. And like I love drawing them with pencil, but I think adding color is a little bit more fun because you can create more of this magic undertone. I think color can definitely add a bit more of the magic. Admittedly, even though I'm more of a graphite artist, I think color, specifically with crystals, can definitely add an extra layer and sheen of magic within them. So there we go. Now from here, if you want to, go back in and, like, let's say we think that the sides of the crystal should be darker. Here's what we can do. I'm going to make a multiply layer. Go back to that polygonal selection tool. I'm choosing both sides. Now, if you want to create more than one selection, you have to hold down Shift, and I believe that is the same on a PC. And as you can see, now we have 2 selections. Change back to my brush, and since it's already set to multiply, I'm just going to grab the purple within the crystal. Oh, you know what though? That's giving way too much texture. Switching back to my soft edge brush. When you deselect, see how it makes it much darker? And once again, it's like just using a selection tool. That's why, as much as I was reluctant to try using it, I definitely see why it can help quite a bit. Okay, so that is our crystal number 2, and we're going to move on to number 3. So if you have any comments or questions, this is the time, and I'm going to reset the Photoshop file so that we can move on to the next one here.
Okay, greetings from the Netherlands. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Ella earlier was like, I'm stressed because Tim is stressed. Ah.
Oh no, now I'm doing better. Now that we got 2 in the bag, I'm like, okay.
It's that selection tool.
Yeah, that I'm definitely not used to.
I hope you're okay with me just sitting here kind of staring as you work.
Oh yeah.
It's always fun watching you do digital stuff too.
I've always been very comfortable with people watching me draw. Well, I shouldn't say always.
I was going to say, yeah.
Since I was like 22. Because I had to start live streaming, I think 23 is when I started doing it for CG Cookie. And I mean, that was like once a week for like 7 years.
Well, I know sometimes you're still kind of like, you don't want someone watching sometimes. But I think that's if you're just like, yeah. Because I feel like you can sometimes be a little bit like, I don't want you watching me right now.
I think if I'm doing like a drawing where like I'm still not confident with it yet.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna put it on the left side actually, because then I can see it more. But typically, like if I go live, I'm definitely comfortable. Like I know I'm live. I know that there will probably be mistakes, but I think it's good for people watching to also see like, yeah, it won't always be a perfect process from start to finish. And I'm a human too. That's gonna happen. So with the green crystal, basically I'm going to show how to do a crystal that's on a surface and how to get some of the light that passes through the crystal and onto the ground. Now this one's a very, very subtle green that passes through and actually lands on the surface of the paper. We are going to get that and make sure we capture the light passing through to the best of our ability. All right, so before I start, is there any more questions?
Okay. Mysterious Wolf says, hi, can you turn on closed captions? I'm deaf. We don't have that on. We'd have to figure out how to do that with YouTube eventually.
I know there is a way to do it. I was just telling Josh because we have basically a giant space in the basement that will be open soon, and we're going to be moving all of the recording stuff and all the live stream stuff down there. I'll have like a nice background. We'll get the better lighting system, better audio, because it echoes a little bit in this workroom. So we're going to have all of those, echo diffusers downstairs. But more than anything, oh gosh, where am I going? I just lost my train of thought.
Getting like add-ons and stuff though.
Oh, that's right. I also want to have, I want the Twitch screen, or not Twitch, the YouTube screen to have more interactivity. I want it to feel like a nice, fresh stream that's catered to, what we do together and doing these weekly live streams. So I like when, someone follows or someone donates. I like custom things that come up that either I draw or, some kind of gold interaction. And one of them is closed captionings, obviously. I would love if the chat had a consistent thing either on the side, or if I can fix it so that it is just always on the side of YouTube. But I think it's if I don't edit a video. I'm rambling at this point. Just know we do want to up the quality of a lot of the video content that we create, and I think things like closed captioning and stuff like that should be added.
Yeah,
so
we'll figure that out.
We're gonna start in March, and hopefully by like summer.
Yeah, we'll figure that out for sure. Though I did write there in chat too for that. Galaxair says, "Thanks so much for making these live streams. I'm seeing so much progress in my own work following your streams."
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
I'm glad that I mean, that's kind of the reason we brought these back, And I do enjoy teaching on some level, but I think I feel inadequate sometimes with digital. But I have to remind myself, like, no, like you understand Photoshop pretty well, and you did a lot of painting back in the day. But I think I'm so used to just drawing with pencils day in, day out that it is weird for me to go back to digital sometimes. I'm like, oh yeah, wait, what's the keyboard shortcut for that? Oh yeah, okay.
But still got it.
Sometimes it takes a second or two, but yeah.
Anthony says, sorry, my first 2 crystals won't be as finished. I've been trying to get onto Dropbox for the paintbrushes. It's all right.
That's totally fine. Go at your own pace. I mean, even if you want to kind of play catch up after the stream ends, that's totally okay. And then post yours maybe last for the critique. That totally works. Okay, so moving on to the green crystal, I'm actually going to use the same, or no, I probably should use a different technique. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to use a different technique because I want to kind of change it up for each crystal. So for this one, I'm going to work with a circle hard edge brush. And I'm going to once again go underneath of the drawing layer. I made a new layer. I'm going to choose kind of a medium green. And this way is kind of the way that I used to paint everything, which is basically you do it by hand. Now, you can kind of see why this might not be the most time efficient, but in a lot of ways it's pretty fun. I think that's probably why I was reluctant and kind of stubborn to change to doing more of like a selection tool basis for digital painting. There's something about, I don't know if this is like more paint by numbers. I don't know if it's more like reminds me of my childhood.
I would say it's kind of like a coloring book.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, like if this was a marker or a pencil of some kind. That's basically what it is. And usually I always do the outline of what I'm working on and then just fill it in. So it is kind of like a paint by numbers. But I mean, this still works, but I think with more complicated shapes, it does just take longer. So now I'm going to make a new layer. Let's see here. What did I want to do with this one? You know what? Yeah, this one will be more of like the hand painted one. So I'll zoom in a bit more here too. So I'm going to make a new layer, mask out the layer we just created, make sure we're in the painting layer. And if you always need to test it out, just do a quick swipe. So from here, this is going to be the old school way of doing painting. And I'm totally okay doing this because this is the way that I painted forever. And I'm only going to work though with a circle hard edge brush, and I'm going to be changing the size of it quite frequently throughout this. And if you want to know how to do that, on a Mac, it's holding Control and Option. I believe on a PC, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Control Alt, and you hold both of them, and then when you click your brush down, left and right, if you swipe either way, changes the size of the brush. Up and down changes the hardness of the brush. I use this constantly when I'm digitally painting. So if you guys see this happen really quick all the time, that's why, because I'm constantly changing. And I think it's to be honest, the best shortcut besides Command Z to learn if you're doing digital painting. Okay, so I guess during this phase, if you guys have any comments or questions, because doing painting like this does take a little longer. I'm going to try to be a little quicker.
Harrison says using color is really not intuitive for me. How can you ensure what colors you choose are right, especially without reference?
So this is where I would do reference studies of real life, whatever object I guess you're working with. In this case, I mean, crystals are a pretty good one because they are colorful, but they're not like full of crazy color. Like skin is a little more difficult because it's a changing landscape of color within. With these crystals, I think what I would do is, rather than eyedropper tool, which is holding Option or holding Alt on a PC and just literally selecting it and then putting it in your painting, I was taught to, we weren't allowed to do this, so that we had a teacher behind us and they would look as we select it in this color box and then literally lay it down. Now what's nice about that is at the end, then you can kind of check how close you were. And I mean, that really helped me with color, but I did
that
have...
helps you build trust in your own eye then in a way too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're training your eye to see the color rather than just copy paste it. And I had a color class, which I don't have the highest regards for the college I went to, just in terms of education. I feel like we kind of taught ourselves more than the professors taught us. But I will say the one class besides life drawing that really seemed to help was a color class. And we only could work with paint. And it was very difficult because we had to match colors like perfectly and you had to mix pigments together. Ooh. And to me, that was actually really good. And it was frustrating as hell. I remember while doing it, I was like, this is so dumb, blah, blah, blah. But looking back, I'm like, actually, that was really smart. And if I ever, I don't think I would ever teach at a college, but if I did, and if I had to teach color, I would do it the exact same way because that really helped me understand, like if I can look at a leaf and be like, okay, that leaf looks about 40% on the value scale. It looks like 30% saturated. Like you can kind of start to see anything in this box. And I guess a really quick color tutorial. I mean, I have a whole series actually on YouTube that you can watch. The whole thing only takes an hour to watch, I believe. Yeah, around an hour. But for the color box, left to right is your saturation here. So the further right on the box, it's going to be more saturated. The further left, the less saturated. And then up and down is your value. So basically how white or black, if you want to simplify it. And then the bar on the right, the rainbow slider, is your hue. So a color, whenever you think of color, think of it in terms of hue, saturation, and value. And that's where HSB comes from, or HSV. Is it HSB? I think it's HSV. Now I'm forgetting.
Hue, saturation, value?
No, I think, you know what it is? It's HSB, but value is interchangeable with the word brightness. Oh, that's it. So okay. I was like, I know it's not HSB. So yeah, and color is a beast. I'm not going to try to be like, oh yeah, no, like if you just watch this color course, like you'll get it. Like color is one of those things where you're going to be learning constantly for your whole life. I don't feel like anyone ever feels like they master color. I feel like people learn different palettes that work for them. I feel like they learn certain combinations of colors that seem to do well, and they kind of rely on that. But whenever you start experimenting with color, you get into this weird zone where you feel like it's your first time painting ever. You feel like a novice. You don't feel good about yourself sometimes, and it's a struggle bus. And just know that that is very normal for every artist. Every artist that I've talked to, it is basically the same story every single time. So I don't want you to feel intimidated or lost. It's very, very normal.
Lost in the color.
Yes.
Harrison says I'm in my first year in our color class was literally just making a color wheel. Thanks, Jane.
I mean, I did have to do that too, but yeah, I would say even going further. So actually, here's a good example. Like, I like how dark this is, but when I color pick, it's kind of giving me the same darkness for the most part. This is where I would kind of use my intuition and be like, you know what? I'm going to choose just a little darker and a little more saturated in that shadow area. And I'm going to push that value. Now, sometimes when I'm painting things with crystals or from reference, I tend to deviate and go my own direction at some point because I love playing with contrast. And if sometimes I want there to be a little bit more of a push, I'll just literally add it. And I think sometimes when doing studies, I have to remind myself to try to keep it as close to the reference as possible, because sometimes you'll learn more doing that. But, if you need to deviate, I'm not going to judge you. I did it in college all the time. I get it. Sometimes you want to just go your own path a little. But I think, though, if you really want to learn, try to do reference studies and try to do it to the best of your ability to make it look like their actual reference.
Fem does say Alt right click on Windows, I think, for changing brush size.
Oh, is that? Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unix says a few people, Cynics and Marco Bucci, I think, made videos about the HSV versus HSB thing, explaining how they are different after all on a PC screen or something.
Really?
The videos kind of broke my brain, though, so I'm not sure.
Well, I love Cynics. He's one of those artists that I always... Like, I got into an argument with, I won't say who, but they don't like Cynics' look of how he pushes and pulls paint strokes around, but I think it's brilliant. I think he's so confident with his values and how he pushes shapes of color that I love his videos and I love his work. So I'd love to watch this video with the HSV versus HSB, because I think I was taught that they're the same thing. Like, brightness is just another word for value. So I'd love to see what he says about it.
Felix, hello.
Hello, Felix.
Sorry, couldn't make it today. I still have to finish Harry and the Crystal Landscape too.
Yeah. Oh, totally fine.
And Marco Bucci legit has the best art tutorials ever.
I don't know if I know that one. I mean, I definitely know Cynics.
I have to remember that Marco Bucci.
Oh yeah, so you can see before and after. So this is me just kind of painting it by hand and eyeballing it. And if from here, I want to create a new layer above that pencil layer, like if I want to edge out some of these nice crisp edges, I can go ahead and do that. Now, like I said, this is a very old school way of doing digital painting and kind of the way that I like doing it the best. But like I said, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm adapting. This ever-changing landscape, I feel like we have to. And for those of you who are watching that are like trying to break into, getting followers or whatever, I do think TikTok is a great place right now to be seen. I feel like it doesn't have nearly the same user base as Instagram in terms of users creating content every single day and posting it. So I feel like you have a better chance of being seen. And right now, especially with artists, I mean, I know so many art friends of mine that are just getting started and immediately getting good numbers right off the gate. And I think a lot of it is just simplifying your TikTok, making it pretty clear what you're creating from the start, having it be like very short, quick cuts, and having a song that's honestly one of the popular ones or one that you feel is very fitting for what you're creating. And it's kind of fun. I mean, I feel like I'm not using TikTok as much as I should right now because I'm so focused on making this book. But once my book is done, you better believe I'm going to be diving back into the world of TikTok.
I think you're going to have fun with those too.
Oh, they're so easy for a traditional artist because you just take like 3-second video at a time, like while you're working. And that's kind of all you need to do. And I think the problem with how people are approaching TikTok is they think, well, if I fail once or twice, well then, it's not for me and blah, blah, blah. I really do think it's a luck of the draw sometimes with media like TikTok because it's a lot of like being seen at the right time and posting at the right time.
It's weird though, because there's some TikToks I'll see will have like 2 million likes on it, and then you pull up the person's actual profile and a bunch of their other videos only get like 2 or 3 likes.
That's how
and they only
is.
have like 50 followers. It's really strange. It's
a weird yet beautiful new social platform, or not, I shouldn't say new to me. I'm sure a lot of people are like, damn, it's been out for a while, but I think it's so rapidly changing where like I did one video, it got 80,000 views, but I was still unknown at that point, and I only had like 5,000 followers on TikTok. But you're right, the more that I'm noticing, all my other art friends, they usually have like 1, 2, or 3 videos that kind of really get spread, and the rest of them get like 100 to 1,000 views. And that's just kind of how TikTok is. It's like a luck of the draw. Oh, this was going to be the shadow. I'm sorry. I am talking way too much here. Okay, so now that we have a generally painted crystal, and you can see how it took me a little longer, but we're going to now do the area underneath it, because this is kind of the real point of this one. And I'm going to show you how to make it look like the light is passing through. So I'm going to make a new layer, put it below our bottommost layer here, so you can see how it's right here. And I'm going to work with a soft edge brush. So now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this lighter gray. Actually, I'm going to make it even lighter. I'm going to push it around the right side of our crystal here. And that'll give kind of the impression of the light coming from the right side. And we're going to push the darker side on this side. So you can see how already it's starting to look like it's sitting on the surface of something. And now where it's really close to the bottom here, you can see how it's darker. I'm gonna make sure I replicate that like that. There's this really fun artist on Instagram. Oh, I won't be able to remember his name off the top of my head, but he does like hyper realistic drawings of objects like a soda can or something. And this is when he like spray paints. He'll like cover, if he was drawing a crystal, he would cover the crystal and then he like spray the shadow and do it in this manner. But I feel like this is when you really start to see something become more 3D looking, is when you add the surface on which the object's actually sitting on. But here, I'm gonna grab, actually I'll make a new layer so I can turn it on and off for you guys. So I'm gonna grab some of that light green. And you can see how already, see how it looks like the light's pouring through the crystal and landing on the surface. I'm gonna make some smaller strokes, kind of to match the reference here. And there we go. So this is a whole lot of subsurface scattering that's going on through the crystal, and then it's pouring out and kind of bouncing and landing on the surface. So what's great about doing techniques like this is technically within the shadow of the crystal, but it's making it look more realistic by adding light within the shadow. Sounds kind of crazy, but the result is awesome. So it's a really easy way to make your stuff look more realistic, especially with crystals or things that have transparency to it. And that is how you do that. I feel like I added too much of the light gray though on this side. I'm gonna tone it down.
Yeah, a lot of people are recommending Marco Bucci.
I feel like I've heard his name before. Maybe it's come up on my YouTube before. I'll definitely check him out though. I'm definitely not opposed to like checking out anyone. I'm not one of those artists that are like, no, like I'm not gonna follow anyone else's tutorials but my own. But let me move that one. Okay, so we got our first 3 crystals, and now we're moving on to our 4th. What time are we at? Okay, so we're like halfway. Okay, perfect. Because the next one's basically all texture, and then the 5th one we're going to pull all of those techniques into one and kind of do whichever one's felt the most natural for you or whichever ones you're most comfortable with. So as I'm getting number 4 ready, if there's any more comments or questions.
Harrison says TikTok is very viral friendly but temperamental. It's actually a good way to put it.
Absolutely.
Felix says, I think TikTok is not great for art content, but it has more random features that sometimes push smaller channels, whereas Instagram only pushes the most popular profiles. It's
so new. I mean, it's so interesting for me to look at TikTok because obviously I'm kind of an older artist that already has a platform with Instagram. So like migrating over has been really interesting because it's not as easy as I thought it would be having a larger platform on Instagram. And I see some of my art friends that have kind of smaller followings on Instagram or Twitter. They post some videos on TikTok. They start to get really big on TikTok. And kind of like what you're saying, I don't know how much of that is then carried over into print sales or to Patreon or pushing them into YouTube or whatever. But I will say, if you get a big enough following, because I do have a couple friends that are pretty big on TikTok, it does translate into sales of some kind of a monetary gain, whether it's prints or pins. Because once you have, let's say, 20,000 to 80,000 followers on TikTok. I do feel like if you post a random video of like a new book that you made or a card deck or whatever product you're doing, there's a good chance that like 1 to 5% of those people may buy it. And 1 to 5% sounds really small until you realize, well, if 80,000 people look at the product, 1% is actually a lot of people, and that's a lot of money that you can make. Plus, I do know Instagram, or at least from what I heard, Instagram does favor Reels right now, which is basically their ripoff of TikTok. And it's so easy to just basically copy and paste something that you made on TikTok over to Instagram. So you basically, if you create one video, you can then apply it onto 2 platforms. So I don't want to be like the biggest advocate for TikTok because I do also get frustrated with it with certain things. But I think it is a growing platform that would be hard for me to ignore as an artist and someone that kind of uses social media as my main source of income right now, especially without conventions. And I just want to share anything that I learned about it with you guys, and hopefully, we can create either more monetary gain or, I don't know, more of a security within our own art realm, depending on what platform we're comfortable with. Okay, I'll stop jammering. So the 4th crystal, this is an amethyst, I believe. Yes. And this one is all texture. So I'm going to be switching to, actually, no, I'm going to stick with my circle hard edge brush first, but then I'm going to be basically working primarily with a texture brush to kind of create the look of this amethyst rock, because this is definitely a very earthy, like pulled from the ground type look, and we want to recreate that. So, let me put all of this in that one layer. Okay, and this is number 2. I'm going to make these layers purple. So those are the ones that we already did. And then here we go. So our drying layer is the green one. So now here, I'm going to make a new layer, once again, underneath of the drawing layer. And doing basically the same method as number 3, I'm going to paint underneath. Oh, that's way too dark though. You know what? Here's a good example of like, Tim, you were just talking about being more efficient and using this. Oh, you know what? Maybe I will try using the lasso tool. Oh, I feel like so much pressure is on right now.
Yeah. Mute Lava says hi with a little kind of sad looking smiley. Hopefully Tim's working with colors today. It's pretty fun. So hopefully you can feel a little better when you leave today.
Or maybe this will just make you feel worse.
I don't know. But no, watching Tim do this right now.
He comes to our stream, or they come to our stream and they're like, well, that was terrible. I feel worse about myself now.
Whenever I do tracing like this, it never works out well for me. My hand's just not steady enough. I'm usually like going and then it's just oof. Oh, you got it.
A little bit. Let me move it over slightly. Like I said, I'm still getting comfortable with the selection tool, so maybe I'll get better as we move on.
Yeah.
So now here, I'll just lock the pixels, go back to my soft edge brush. Ooh, I do not like that color though. I'm going to change the saturation there. So now here, I'm kind of trying to create the local color. Actually, I feel like this rock is much more desaturated than I originally gave it credit for. I feel like it's more of a gray than this purple. I feel like the purple is actually more of the accent color, really. It's more of a dark crystal.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here, and it does have just weird... It looks more purple than it is, I guess. Because it almost is more just...
Gray.
Gray, yeah.
Right? So, using the soft edge brush technique, basically start large, get all of your, when you like squint, those values that you see, you should be able to kind of recreate on the rock. Which sometimes I skip this stage, and I always regret skipping this stage. And then you kind of make your brush size smaller as you try to get within these smaller areas. This whole right side's a bit lighter.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
Yeah, right.
What was the last one you did then? It's this bigger one, right?
Yes, the blue
Okay.
one. I know it's not angel quartz. I forgot what it was called. It was like titanium quartz or something. No, that doesn't sound right. Oop, I almost started detailing. Okay. So then from here, make a new layer, mask out what we just did, and now I'm going to switch to my chalk brush. The chalk brush I really like working with because it has a good amount of texture. And since I like working with pencils primarily, I like the tactile feel of the pencil on the paper, and I like the look of having the ripples on the paper kind of show some of the graphite, but not all of it, and it creates this nice textured look. So when I do digital, I think I tend to lean into that. And this is such a very textured brush that I can kind of do light brush strokes on top, and it'll leave behind a good amount of texture underneath. I'm changing my brush. You know what? I gotta keep it large first. I always want to go small and start detailing right away, but you gotta trust the process. Sometimes I'm a rebel and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna detail
it. Harrison says Instagram is basically a TikTok reposting app at this point.
You're not wrong. I see a lot of people doing it. Well, it's funny because it's like, is Reels gonna eventually take out TikTok? I feel like that's a discussion me and my friends have had, and the answer we got is we don't know. I mean, I don't know if people like having the two separate platforms and keeping TikTok basically all video content. I will say I've seen more people enjoy TikTok because it's less like opinion based on things. I hate to even say that, but I see a lot of people definitely get afraid of using Twitter. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of using Twitter either because it's just a lot of animosity on it. A lot of people yelling at each other, and Instagram kind of gets some of that too, and it does get a lot of that. But I feel like TikTok, it's not really about like shouting at each other or like shouting your opinion. It's more of just like fun videos at the moment. And I think that's why people are gravitating toward it, but we'll see. So you can see as I get my brush size smaller, we're adding more of those details within. I'm trying not to get too detail oriented, but wherever there's a cut, like you can see the cut on the bottom there, try to recreate that a bit. Because I'll make a new layer on top of this one, and that's where I'll really start to get into the finer details. And that's how I would draw a crystal like this. So I'm basically relying on a brush to do a lot of the heavy lifting so that I don't have to spend my time, drawing a little bit of creases and texture everywhere. I think that's something that is hard for, at least it was hard for me as a primarily traditional artist to get used to, is relying on brushes to do the legwork for you. Because I think with pencil, you literally have to draw everything. Every detail, every, giant splotch of value you have to do by hand. And it's usually very time consuming. So I think I got so conditioned to a way of working like that. Working digital, it's so weird when I see people like doing giant shapes with the selection tool and filling it in and basically calling that base done. But I think it's good to not be stubborn. As much as I can be stubborn with things, I feel the older I get, the less stubborn I am in terms of, maybe that is better, and then like trying it out. And usually it is better. So I think kind of accepting that we don't know everything when it comes to how to do art, and to always be open to learning new techniques. And I think that's why when I did this tutorial this morning, I really wanted to show a few different methods, because I think it's good to always know that there isn't going to be one way on how to draw everything, and that's totally okay. Okay, so you can see now I'm going in. Oh, you know what? Let me zoom in even further here. I'm just slightly kind of dusting texture throughout. What?
Felix, am I a boomer if I ask whether reels are just video posts on Instagram?
Yes. The answer is yes. No.
Basically,
So basically, Reels is basically the adaptation of TikTok on Instagram. It has its own separate feature page on your page. So you have like posts and then there's a Reels tab. So they're trying to make it like a separate thing within the app. I mean, I like it so far. I know some people were kind of opposed to it, but I actually like that they keep it separate. And
they're fun to do. I remember I've only made one. It was me making pancakes. And
no, technically you have two. Oh, you mean on Reels?
On Reels, yeah. Oh yeah, I have 2 Astro TikToks. Basically, that's all I TikTok. It's my cat. But it was fun to do. I don't know for art though. I guess for you, traditional, you could show. That's what you do. Is you show like little bits at a time of you doing the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
How do people do digital work then?
Oh, digital I actually think could be easier with some things.
Okay.
Because you can do like giant shapes or like fill in of color, or like texture. If you guys follow Devin, can you put her Instagram on here?
Yeah.
So Devin is one of my friends that she inspires the hell out of me. We have a talk once a month with a few of our other friends, and I think she's killing it. She understands the game of social media. She understands how to utilize new features. And I think when Reels and kind of TikTok, she started playing with it more, she really found this method that works for her. And it seems to work for other people when she recommends her way of doing it. So I would check out her Reels and her way of doing it. And you can see they're very quick. They're like fill in color. She always recommends putting the final image first so that when people are scrolling, they get a sense of what the finished product is going to look like, and then it takes it through the process. And I believe her other tip was never make it longer than 20 to 25 seconds. And I actually do agree with that one. I feel like the ones that I really enjoy looking at are in that time frame, if not less, to be honest.
She does. Actually, I just realized too, I don't know, there's that Netflix show Disenchantment, and she worked on that. Like, had no idea, but I watched almost all 3 seasons, and I didn't even realize that was Devin. I don't know. I feel like she's keeping herself busy all the time.
She's a boss.
Yeah.
She reminds me a lot of like that same kind of fun energy to be around as Jules from Euphoria. She just kind of gives us like carefree, but can be serious, but just a very fun personality to be around. Obviously, another reason why I think we want to get back into cons is we miss seeing these people. It's fun hanging out with them. Okay, let me see what that looks like from far away. So the last thing I'll do, I mean, sometimes I'll actually remove the pencil layer. You can kind of see what it looks like before and after. Which actually, I kind of like it without the pencil layer. You know what? Yeah, this one's going to be a little different. So I'm going to do it without the pencil layer. I'm going to make one more layer and basically edge out any of the areas that I think needs a bit of the edge to come back. But this would be a good example of painting on top of the pencil layer, but then deciding to get rid of it. And painting without that pencil edge.
This one looks really good.
Oh,
I'm going to compliment you on that. Like the 2 next to each other, it almost looks like the photo on the right.
I'll get out of
here. Yeah, I'm legit with you right now. You know, I don't just hand out compliments, Tim.
Wait, you're like
Tim
the
hates
first one to hand out.
Tim hates compliments, and Tim hates like every compliment I give. He's always like, "That's just a handout one." I'm like, "No, Tim, I'm complimenting you legit." I mean,
I had a worse problem with accepting compliments when I was younger. But I think I'm still so critical of my work and what I do that any compliment I'm like, well, nah.
Yeah, you're very tough with that.
A little bit.
Anthony, for me, the hardest thing with digital is finding a brush that feels like an actual brush that I can blend with. Yep. I have issues with the blend tool.
So I created this brush when I was still working at CG Cookie, and I've learned that it helps me to create my own brushes for me to feel comfortable with them. So if I were you, I would honestly look into tutorials on how to create brushes. I don't think I have mine public, because I think CG Cookie still has that one. You know what, I could create a new one sometime in the summer once we get the new studio downstairs set up, because pretty much all the brushes that you see here, I've made. Actually, all of them I've made. And there's some really fun ones. I was actually thinking of putting some on Gumroad. I made a braid brush. Oh shoot, am I gonna be able to find it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this brush I made, this is back when League of Legends made Jinx, and I loved her blue braid in the promo. So I made a braid brush. Isn't that fun?
Oh my gosh.
So like the only problem is if you go too tight of a curve, you get some of that.
Give the crystal a braid. Oh.
But if you kind of use it more of like going
gorgeous
straight down or like that, it kind of creates a nice braid. I think I will put this one on Gumroad eventually. Actually, Jinx hair was more blue, so it was like, oh no, darker. Yeah. Right, pretty fun. But anyways.
I follow this streamer on Twitch. Her name's Granny, and she'll just say gorgeous behavior. Gorgeous behavior.
Or my other favorite compliment right now, ding dong. Okay, so usually when I do a texture kind of look to my work, I'll then end it with texture around it to kind of complement within the piece. Seeing like something like that, have a little lighter on the top. There we go. So this is our fourth crystal. Actually, that's a little too light. There we go. So yeah, that is basically using all texture brush on top of a flat, and then without the pencil drawing to support it. So you can see without, with and without. It's not that big of a difference, but some of the edges are a bit darker, where if you want more of that edge ending where the value ends, like this, you can see even down here, where it kind of has a lost edge in a little area. I mean, it's just dark enough where it's not a pure lost edge, but you guys get what I mean. Okay, so that is going to be that one. That'll be number 4. And before we get into our 5th one, if there are any comments or questions, Josh, if you want to catch up on, I will start moving things around here.
Yeah, Joni says you both sitting together is really nice to see. Oh, thank you. It's taken us a while to get to this point, but...
To just sit next to each other?
Unique says, I kind of don't like the way those art videos go on TikTok. They low-key make me angry. I have the same thing with those top-down recipe videos that were back on Facebook. Or was it Fresh or whatever? Hello? No, what was it? Yeah, it was Fresh, I think, was the name of those ones.
Well,
is it more just the, like, those top-down recipe videos where they would, like, here's how you make a cake, and they would, like, show, like, them throwing in all the stuff, and then all of a sudden the cake appears?
Oh, I don't know if I've seen those.
I mean, those were kind of frustrating because it's like they make it look so perfect, and then you try it, and it's like, oh, geez.
Oh, you know what? I will say that, yes. I feel like those videos are not for, like, educational purposes or for, like, how-to. I feel like TikTok and Reels are basically, like,
it's
short...
all aesthetic, though, to be honest. It's all just, like...
But they're short entertainment bites, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's all it really is.
I mean, I guess it could be discouraging with art, though, too, I guess, because sometimes it's like... And all of a sudden there's, like, masterpiece appears at the end, and you're like, wait,
agree.
Wait, what did I miss?
I think watch them knowing that there's probably a lot of frustration and chaos behind the scenes on how they created it that they're not posting.
I mean, everyone wants to present this, like... especially online, I think everyone wants to present themselves as, like, being all together, and it just, everything worked out perfectly. Mm-hmm. But...
Well, I mean, hell, even, like, sometimes with these streams I get a little nervous because I know that I want it to be as quote-unquote perfect as possible. But I think years ago I kind of, once I started to mess up here and there, I used to get like, Tim, like, how could you mess up your live? But now I'm like, you know what? No, it's normal. Like, people mess up when they draw. Like, it's almost irresponsible to make younger artists or artists that are, like, you know, getting into this believe that every step of the way is going to be this process that's perfect, it's meticulous. If you follow these steps, you'll have the end result exactly how I have my result. I think it's okay that, yeah, experimentation is part of the process. And that's why even doing time lapses, I get a little discouraged from doing them, because a lot of the time when I do my art, I'm changing the direction and the concept of what I'm drawing all the time. And I think it would be frustrating to watch on a live stream because it would have like a nice face or something and I would erase it. Or I'd have like a nice flowing hair and then I'd erase it. But I actually am more comfortable now with the idea of showing that so that it kind of gives more of a realistic portrayal of how doing art for me really is. But yeah, just understand with TikTok and Reels, it's like a small entertainment bite that is very manufactured to look pleasing in a short amount of time. But it's not depicting the art journey as it really truly is.
For every post, you should do a blooper reel of the sheer panic while working on it.
All the lost concepts
Right.
along the way, basically.
Jonathan says, something I've been reminded of, especially watching you block this crystal in, is just how important a value block is and before varying the hues and rendering. A way to change my last piece.
It's one of those things where I didn't take an official digital painting course, but I learned from a lot of my friends how they would create thumbnails and they would basically block out values before they even started really getting into color or detailing. And before that, I would always paint on a white background and I would like slowly sketch line art and then I would fill it in. Like it was a very slow, meticulous process. And the thing that I'm learning about digital that is kind of counterintuitive for me is to kind of slop a bunch of things on and then organize that chaos. Where with pencil, it is a very slow, meticulous process. But with digital, you can kind of just slap things on. I mean, even when I was like in my peak of my doing digital art days, I was very good at like just slopping on like color and being like, oh yeah, this is kind of going here. And then you just kind of make it work over time. You know, you just kind of play with it. And that's why digital is so fun because you can undo, you can edit anything, you can liquefy, you can change the saturation on a whim.
You were like the equivalent of in old cartoons, the little French. They always have like the French painter come in. They're just like that with the paint.
Oh, kind of. To me, that is a little bit of what digital art is. Okay, well then I guess let's go ahead and get started on the fifth one.
Yes.
Okay. So now, wait, are we starting?
There's more. Hang on, I just want to get through some of the questions. Hang on.
Well then, wait. Before you do that, let me just say I'm gonna just do the blocking out method with a selection tool, and I'm gonna fill it in and do a base. So I'll do that while we answer the first question.
All right. Fem says, gonna have to put braids in all the crystals now. Have you ever used Adobe Fresco? CLS.
No, I have not. To be honest, I don't even know what that is.
Felix is literally my favorite show ever. The Bald and Beautiful podcast is not quite a replacement. I don't know if I know those.
Yeah, you do.
Do I?
I think I've seen every episode of Josh is like, what?
Wait, I don't know if I have.
I don't know if you have either. It's Katya and Trixie's show.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because you watch those.
Mm-hmm.
Because they talk about each drag episode, don't they? Each drag race one?
No, they talk about whatever they want.
Oh, okay.
It's sometimes like really random topics. Really quick, for those of you, if you have a selection tool already, if you ever want to add to it, I think we kind of talked earlier, you hold shift. You can see how it has that little plus sign next to it. But if you want to take away, on a Mac, it's Option. I believe on a PC is Alt. You might have to correct me on that one again. But you can see how if you do that, it'll cut into your selection. But I like that selection, so I'm going to keep it.
I will say, if you're looking for entertaining Twitch, I have been loving Granny. Just,
yeah,
I think the name is Granny on Twitch, yeah.
Oh, really quick while you're doing that. I believe you shouldn't work with texture at the earliest stage. Literally, when you block out color like this, don't use texture brushes yet. At least, I mean, you can. I have learned that I'm quicker if I kind of block it out with these very soft gradations of color first, and then go in with a texture after. So just a little tip there.
I think Fem's giving the Windows shortcuts along the way.
Oh, thank you, Fem.
Shift to add selection and Alt to add to selection.
Thank you. Oh, I should also note, so I brought back our donation bar, but I think I'm going to do it where when it fills up, someone donated $30 too randomly.
Oh, really?
But I wasn't streaming, so I was like, oh, how did that get there? But if we get to 150, I think we'll do a book giveaway and a card deck and a print. So every time we hit that giveaway number, we'll try to do all 3 of those.
And the giveaways will be run a lot smoother this next time.
Yeah. And I think the donation link should be below.
If your name starts with an A, you won't be winning by default this time.
Yeah, that was rough. That was a little rough.
It worked out though.
So I'm gonna start using the selection tool here.
I'm excited for those colors at the top.
Yes, so that is obviously the main difference between this crystal and a lot of the other ones. Is it has this crazy rainbow kind of oil spill looking color palette at the very top. I gotta concentrate while I do. This is so weird for me to use a selection tool.
Jonathan says, best thing on TikTok, sea shanty sang by Scotsman, the chap in black and white. Oh, that actually sounds kind of fun to watch. Like, that's where TikTok's great, because you can find all these like very niche, interesting things on there.
I love TikTok, but it's very easy for me to get lost and waste like an hour or 2 on TikTok. There's a lot of like funny videos that I find, and I think comedy is like my main. It's kind of what I mainly look for in TikTok. You would think it would be like art videos or whatnot, but no, it's pretty much all comedy. Okay, so you can see how I selected these 2 facets of the crystal. So I make it dark, undo, and see how it like already has more of a dimension to it. So this is something that I almost wish I would have learned earlier in my career, because I'm learning why doing this method can save just so much time.
Rigged. Yeah, that giveaway was a little rigged.
Not
intentionally.
Rigged. I don't know if we can trust you anymore, Josh.
I can't believe I didn't notice too. It was like when it would do the little pop-up with all the names, it was like one big block of the names.
It's pretty bad.
Unix says, I've been drawing with Procreate on the iPad of my roomie currently and had fun with the pencil tool because it looks like pencil. So there kind of is a clear goal, but I can still trial and error my way through it. But since it's digital, erase it all. But I still like that I am cheating. I still think I'm cheating since I could do this traditional. I just don't have the skills, so I do it digital.
Yeah, I think Procreate to me is my favorite in terms of like capturing a pencil feel, even more so than my Cintiq, to be honest. And it is strange. Like there are some artists that I see that are posting things online that I think are pencil, but then they'll say it was digital created on Procreate. I was like, oh, we're getting to that point where it's really hard to decipher if something was done in pencil or if something was done digitally, which is crazy. Oops. See, now this is. I feel like I blocked out the main sections here, and I think now I'm going to start doing a little bit of the texture. Yeah, I'm going to do some texture here. Now remember, this one I'm kind of just going, I'm merging all of the different techniques together and kind of going at my own pace here.
It's fine, Josh. We forgive you. Thank you, fam. I feel like I'll never live that day down, though, now.
Yeah, that was rough.
Actually, I know there was a question I might have missed too. There's something. Yeah, Emery says, will there be a 4-book bundle available on your Etsy like the 3-book bundle? I was hoping to get them for my birthday this year.
You betcha. Actually, with the new Kickstarter that we're going to do, I think we're going to have all 4 of them where you can get them all together. Oh yeah, I guess that's a announcement, is I have a Kickstarter coming out, and it'll probably be mid to late April is the actual launch date. And it is my 4th sketchbook. It's my largest one. It's 190 pages total, and my last one was 160. I thought it was gonna be less than my last one, but I guess with quarantine, I just had more time to draw, so there's way more drawings within it. I'm down to editing the last 5 pages. My Patreon followers can actually see 60 of the finished pages right now on Discord. There's like a exclusive group there, and I'm actually really proud of this new one. The third one, I felt like I rushed it. Not rushed in like a bad way, but I felt like my second book was really complete, and I really looked through and edited it. But I think my associations with the third book was so rough because our book, the actual manufacturer, it was just like this back and forth that took like a year for me to actually get the books. And by the time I got them, I was so frustrated with them that I feel like I didn't get to enjoy them as much as I could have. But I think with my fourth book, I found this new manufacturer. Her name's Sam. She lives in Chicago, and I'm really glad to be working with her. It's with Print Lore. If any of you want to make a book, I highly recommend her. She did Viarte's book, Gary's book, and also Sean, Art of Price. And I'm very excited to get my fourth book.
We learned a lot from, having 2 Kickstarters. Well, it wasn't supposed to be in the same year, but because the books were delayed so much, there's literally 2 back-to-back Kickstarters we had to get out. So I think we learned a lot in terms of like dealing with messages, dealing with replacements, dealing with like all the management stuff that I don't think we realized we'd have to. I feel like we're going to be really ready for this now too. There's a lot to it that I wasn't aware of either, and it was just really cool to
kind of a warning sign for everyone. Do not try to fulfill 2 Kickstarters at the same time. That was hell. That was hell.
That was a lot, but we did it.
It was like it was my card Kickstarter that we had to fulfill, and there were like 1,400 orders, which ended up being like 15 or 2,500 card decks. And then it was about 500 book orders, which turned out to be like 1,200 books that we had to wrap and get out. And on top of that, this is like right before Drawtober and kind of through Drawtober, which, we have to run and curate that whole month. And then on top of it, by the time that it bled into November, we had to get ready for Black Friday. And then that we had a crap ton of orders last year. So it felt like we were just shipping and wrapping and packing and taping and doing all that for like 4 months nonstop. I felt like I was downstairs more than I was in my office room drawing. It was a lot. And I think now that I have the fourth book, I'm like eager to get back into the drawing mindset again. I've been telling Josh, like, I feel like I've just been getting frustrated over nothing. And I feel like my insecurities of like seeing how other artists are doing well on Instagram or social media, and I feel like I'm just working on this book and I'm not really posting anything new, and I have to post old art, which is not usually my favorite thing to do, because then I feel like I'm just regurgitating, old stuff. But thankfully, I'm aware of it. I'm in a much better place now that the book's almost over. And honestly, doing these again have kind of put me in a good mental state where I feel like I have fun doing these. I get to do it with Josh. And then I think definitely getting rid of the Kickstarters and organizing downstairs really helped.
Oh, yeah.
Because now I feel like we're on top of it. And whenever the fourth Kickstarter happens, we're going to be so ready to wrap and pack the books that it should be done in less than 2 weeks. And kind of a surprise that I guess I can tell you guys is I'm actually ordering all the books either at the end of this month or like mid-February, because I want all the books to arrive before the Kickstarter even begins. And I've been saving money on the back end to kind of afford a book order, and that way I can kind of make up for how bad the third sketchbook was in terms of how long it took to get to people. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. Okay, I feel like I'm noodling right now. So let's go ahead and do that fun oil spill gradient. Make a new layer. I'm going to use the selection tool on this. Now what's fun is, you know what, let's mask out the crystal. So this way, let's say we want to just do this section. Even if you pull out the selection tool way out here, wherever you paint in, oops, let me grab my, see how it only paints within the crystal? Even though the selection tool is outside of it, because you masked it, it will not go outside of that crystal, which is really fun. So let me make a better selection tool though. Oh, I have some ones. I want to do a jagged edge because this crystal has a lot of cracks and scratches in it. So you can kind of play with that when you do the selection tool here.
Oh, Adam, I just got my vonnart sketchbook collection in the mail earlier this week. Exceptional product, exceptional packaging. I couldn't give good enough review. 5 stars just isn't enough.
Well, thank you so much.
That's very sweet.
That makes me feel better.
Well, it is funny because, I mean, I'm doing most of the customer service stuff with that stuff too. Mm-hmm. So I feel like sometimes we do just get like the bad messages. So it is always nice when people do send something nice in. Especially when we're like exhausted from packaging and then it's like, okay, someone got something wrong in the mail, so then we're, resending it and stuff too. Most people have been really nice, but there have been some messages where people just aren't really nice sometimes, and it's like,
I would say that people are more or less expecting the packages within a week of sending, but I think a lot of people don't realize, like, once we give it out to USPS, like, it's kind of out of our hands. And especially for international orders, like, there's literally nothing we can do to make it go faster to you.
Oh yeah, well, we were talking to, I think Amazon kind of sometimes makes people get this perception that anything we ship nowadays just arrives like immediately. Mm-hmm. And if you're not Amazon, usually it does take a really long time to ship things still. So yeah, it's always hard because, I mean, there's been some things I've been taking like 2 months or more to arrive for people right now. And it's really hard because we obviously want people to get stuff. So I have sent, we've resent things before, and then the person gets the original one. Mm-hmm. So they end up getting 2 orders just because it took 2 months for the original to arrive. So yeah, it's really hard.
Well, it's kind of frustrating when things like that happen because it's like, if we would have just waited like an extra 2 weeks, they would have got the product.
Right, but we just don't know.
When we don't want people to feel like we're gypping them or that, we forgot them.
Right. It's tricky.
It's tricky.
It's very tricky.
I can't hear tricky without thinking of SSX.
Oh, that's right.
It's tricky.
I used to love. Actually, I think it was the second one I loved so much.
Oh, I love the third one. Actually, I found the disc for the third one.
Yeah,
it's in the basement. We should play that. To be honest, I kind of want to play it. Well, so for those of you who don't know, I love snowboarding, and I'm teaching Josh how to snowboard this year at some point. So we'll see how that goes. That would be a good TikTok moment. Okay, so I just selected everywhere that I want the oil spill in. Actually, I don't want this. What is this? Get out of here. There we go. So now I'm only going to focus on the gradient. So is this its own layer? I'm going to make a new layer, remask it out. Nope. Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my circle soft edge brush. And I'm going to basically do the reverse. So I'm going to start with more of the yellow, paint in the whole thing. Actually, maybe not so much on the bottom. I feel like it's more scattered. I like that. And then work my way up. Create this nice oil spill gradient here. So I feel like we have a lot of really intense yellows on this side. Okay, switching to more of the magenta.
Anthony says it's my hope that one day digital paintings will be allowed in museums and maybe even the Louvre. Oh, I'm sure they will.
I don't know. Art people are very critical.
That's
critical of art.
That is a whole different crowd, I guess, in terms of like the art realm. I feel like would that be like high art?
I feel like eventually it will as well. I think as younger generations take over, as like obviously as people pass on.
Yeah.
I feel like whoever they pass on it to, I think there will be a new age of thinking about what digital art is and can it be seen as art. I think I've always had this feeling though with digital versus traditional. I do feel like digital has a little bit of a easier time executing the final product. And that's not to mean that it's worse in any ways, But I think the reason why I think museum people are so stubborn with digital versus having more traditional, so I think traditional, it does have that feeling of more time invested into it, and it has this the sense that there weren't. Oh well, thank you, Jessica, for subscribing. Oh, I haven't had the sound on this whole time. So if people have been subscribing, well, maybe not. I feel like I would have seen it. Whenever I see Donald up on I'm like, oh
yeah.
But thank you for subscribing.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm also gonna add some texture here because I feel like it's not that clean of a gradient. I feel like it is a little of a dirty gradient here, so I'm gonna recreate some of that. But this is definitely how I would do the oil spill reflection. I would definitely select out the area that you want to be. Let me see what that looks like without the mask here.
Felix, it's dumb to have to post every day for an algorithm. Someone like Miles Johnston, who spends like 50 hours in a piece, has to repost to feed the algorithm.
Oh, trust me. Well, Miles is really smart about it because he does post almost every day. But from what I've read about how to do well on Instagram, you kind of do have to post every day. And I think, I want to keep it up here. And he has so much of a backlog of work that he can just kind of repost almost every day a piece that maybe he did 4 years ago or 2 years ago. And to a lot of people, it kind of is a new piece of art, because if someone followed him like 4 weeks ago, they probably don't scroll all the way and look through everything that he's ever done. So instead, he can just repost, and he kind of has a luxury to do that. It's something that I wish I did more of, because I know it helps with the algorithm. I don't really have a good excuse, and I'm not going to pretend to make one of why I don't do it more. I really should. Maybe I'll start this week. I think I'm just so busy with making the book that I'm not as focused on Instagram as I used to. Okay, so I think with this oil spill, I'm realizing how much texture is added on top. So on top of this layer that we just did with the oil spill, and you can see before and after how we get that, I'm going to grab that kind of gray color that's next to it. And using my texture brush, I'm going to add in some more of these textures back on top. Because giving that kind of scratchy look kind of will help this face look more close to the reference, obviously. Because if it's too perfect looking, I don't think it really looks like the reference, because the reference definitely has a lot of these scratches and pockets of indents. So I'll make sure that we include those. But for those of you who are trying to get more views and followers on Instagram, I will say having more of a regular posting schedule does help. And I know it can be intimidating. I know some of my friends will have like backlogs where they'll draw for like a month straight, not really post much, and then they'll kind of go on a schedule where they'll release like a bunch of things in a matter of span of 2.5 weeks. And I think as much as I know, social media I treat like a game. You got to treat it like a game, or else I think it can consume you, and you become so obsessed with like, oh, I need to gain followers, I need to get views, or I need to get likes. And I think just treat it like a game and try to use as many benefits as you can. I remember like little tricks that I would learn, like you can use hashtags in stories and then minimize them to basically until they disappear. And that's like a way for your stories to get more seen. I don't know if that one still holds up to this day, but I remember when I learned that, I was like, oh, obviously I never even knew that. And these are great tips to know if you're trying to get seen. So it's like learning a lot of those can actually help your platform more than the actual quality of your work, as gross as that sounds.
I think it was you, maybe, I can't remember. But with goal setting too, don't set your goal of like, I want to gain this many followers. Set your goal of like, I want to post 3 days a week. Or I want to do, like, make realistic goals of like actual actions you're taking. Don't make the goal like, I want to make 50,000 followers by this time. Make the goal, I want to be posting 3 of these, 2 of these a week, or I want to be working in a drawing every month or something.
Yes.
Like that over a result of those actions.
So I watched this, it was on YouTube. I forgot what his name was. Oh, I might have to find it and post it in Discord later. But he talked about how rather than setting goals that are objective based, kind of like what you're saying, like I want to have a painting done by the end of this week, or I want to have a certain amount of followers by the end of the month. Instead, have smaller goals that are more time based. So, okay, for this week, I want to work 5 hours on this project. I'm going to dedicate an hour every day. And like that gives you more of a fulfilling goal, because then when you finish that hour each day, you can kind of check that off and you feel like you're productive. You're working towards an end result. And that has helped me kind of switching my mentality around with it, because I used to do the thing where I'd be like, okay, I want 50,000 followers by the end of this month, or my goal this year. I mean, I still do it sometimes. Like even with YouTube, I would love to have 100,000 followers on YouTube just to get the plaque that YouTube sends you. So I'm like, I'm halfway there. But I think that is more of like a fun goal. It's not like one that I'm like actively desperate to try to reach, because I think it would kind of destroy the quality of the content I'm trying to create, because then I would try to do more clickbaity things, or well, I mean, I guess it's similar to Instagram, like you're learning to play the game. Instagram's just a different beast, and I don't want to treat Instagram or YouTube the same that I treat Instagram, where I want to have more fun with it. And I'm having more fun with it. And I like me and Josh do the piano drawing collabs, and actually we have a new one that Josh is almost done with that I'll be drawing for next week for our Patreons. And then I always post them 3 months later on YouTube. Like I want to do more of those videos, like things that actually give me joy making, and obviously these live streams. Like, yeah, that's the kind of video content I want to make. And if I don't gain 1 million followers on YouTube, I'm way more okay with that. Instagram, though, I do treat a little more differently, if I was honest with you guys. I do treat it more like okay, I need to hit certain goals. I want to gain a certain account. So I know it's hard to not listen to those voices. And I'm telling you that as much as those can be overwhelming, try to have more goals that are time-based and where you're putting your time per day and per week. It can help you not only feel like you're more productive, but I feel like it can help your mental state, because then you can actually see how many hours you're putting into something every week, and like, you know what? Yeah, I'm proud. Even though I didn't finish anything specific this week, I put a lot of hours into these projects, and because of that, I can be proud knowing that I'm going to finish it sooner, or I can, like that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of piddling on this one because I'm having fun working on it, and I'm kind of having fun talking. But as we're getting near the end of the study stream, I'll do a quick critique of your crystals if you want to post them. So I guess if you want to start posting them in the Discord. And obviously today is a little different because it's not, a pure 90-minute study. So I'm not going to do like a pure critique like I normally do. I'm going to kind of look at them and say what I think works, what could maybe be improved on, and have the critique session be more like that.
And if you only did like 2 of them, you can still feel free to put them up too.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or even just 1. Whatever you got done, it's okay.
And if no one posts, because this one might be a little more intimidating, I totally get it too.
Anthony says there's actually a movement in our community that's against the current theme of spewing out art constantly in order to stay relevant, when we used to spend years on painting for quality.
Yeah, if I can join that movement, I'm a part of it. I like that. I like the idea of focusing on quality over quantity. And I do think it gives artists like Miles or myself or Loesch or any of the artists that are a little older, they have this backlog, this catalog of work that they can just keep reposting, so they can gain more of the attention and the eyes of viewers. Where I almost feel for younger artists in some ways, because it's got to be so difficult to just start fresh,
It's it's like this new norm of how you, I guess like you said, stay relevant. And I don't even know, I guess platforms like that now, how they have to make a way that artists are somehow categorized separately in the way that the algorithm works. I don't even know how they do that, because Instagram, there's obviously other mediums and things people are doing on there too, trying to get themselves out there. So it's like, it's tricky.
It's tricky. It's tricky. But
oh gosh, all right, I need to stop saying that word.
Yeah, I think of it every time. But just know, I mean, there's a plus and a downside to it. So I think it's easy to focus on the downside, but the plus of it is it's so much more easy to make money and establish yourself without having to work for a company. And I remember when I went to school, like being a freelance independent artist wasn't even really an option. It wasn't even like a thing that people would consider as like their job in the future. But now, I mean, heck, most of my friends aspire to be that, and most of them kind of are. It's crazy how different the landscape is for art nowadays. So try not to, bum yourself out too much over the logistics of like, how do I make myself known on social media and all that. Just make good work, make art that speaks to you. And I think, going back to like why you do art in the first place, it's usually to connect with people. And I feel like art is such a bridge to connect people that I feel like it has been kind of forgotten in recent years. Not entirely. I still see a lot of good art, and I still see a lot of artists creating great things. But I do think for younger artists, it's very discouraging to see like someone posting every day and being like, I can barely post once a week, let alone like once every other week, something new that I feel proud of. And if I was 20 again, or like 18 and trying to get into the scene, it'd be way more difficult. So I totally get where you guys are coming from. But the one thing that one of my teachers told me, my favorite art teacher, my high school teacher, is don't focus too much on getting or having your art be liked. Focus more on doing art that you like and can be proud of. And what was that end statement? It was something like, really great art will never fully be ignored. So the idea was, if you focus on making really, really good art, regardless of what platform or whatever new thing comes out, like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, you will get noticed because good art will always be recognized. And that's something I try to always remind myself, is try not to create these like quick, rushed out looking pieces of art. Instead, like try to create pieces that look like they took some time and there's effort, and it's more than just a pretty girl with flowers around her head. No offense to a lot of you do that, but I do feel like that's kind of the standard for how to get popular on Instagram. Okay, I'll stop piddling with this crystal. This is my end crystal. Oh, you know what? Actually, looking at it on the screen, I need to do a soft light.
I mean, I know it's cliche, but like, I know Tim believes in you. I believe in you. And you just have to put that, like, I don't know. It stresses me out thinking about that for people, because it is like, especially when you're just starting, it's scary because you want to be at a point that you see someone else at, but you're not quite there. And it's kind of this like big question of what to do or what's right. And especially too, because the algorithm's always changing and there's all these changes that are always happening. So it's like hard to keep up with, while you're also just trying to focus on your art and improve that. And I don't know, that's a lot. But I don't know.
It's one of those things where, well, yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I think I'm good. I feel like it still looks way too sloppy in areas.
We do have a post. We actually have a couple.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
A few.
Let me make my piece look not so crappy before we switch over. Look at him like, it looks a little rough in some areas. And then we'll switch over here. So yeah, you know what? We need to focus on other people. Tim, don't make it about yourself. Focus on the people. There we go.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, Tim. So these were my 5 crystals. Let me show them all here. So these were the 5 crystals we did today, and I hope the different techniques helped. So just as a quick recap, the first one was basically drawing and painting over a crystal that has a pencil drawing that was pretty much complete beforehand. The second one was basically using just the selection tool. I always forget what the specific, it is not the lasso, what's the other one called? Polygonal lasso tool. and then kind of separating it in planes. The third one was the old school way of hand painting the whole thing and then having it rest on a surface, and how to create the drop shadow along with the bounce light that pools through the crystal and lands on the surface. The fourth one was using pretty much entirely a texture brush on a flat base, and then unselecting the pencil layer so there's no pencil in the final product. And then the fifth one was just amalgamation of all of the techniques, and I hope that helped. Okay. So yeah, this one, there was a lot today. There was a lot going on. And I know we're on pretty good time. I feel like the follow-along streams are usually like 2.5 hours. Okay. So as I pull these up, Josh, if you want to be a commentator. And I'm going to leave, for those of you who maybe want to do this later or are catching the stream late, I'm going to keep the references in the Dropbox for you to download if you want to even do this after YouTube's over. And I'll have them up for the entire year. I'll try to figure out a way where I can just always have the references ready and available. So yeah, let's go. I'm very good at selecting. Yeah, it probably is easier to work on a Cintiq for like the selecting part. I'm sure if you're working on a tablet, it's a little harder, but it's still new to me too, so I feel you on that. Okay, so the first one is Harrison. You know what, I'll make sure that these are all on the top here.
Harrison says I tried.
Oh, I mean, that's more than most can say. I feel like if you're trying in the art world, you're succeeding, because all art is a lot of attempts at trying until something kind of clicks, and then going back into trying, and then something clicks again. And then over time, you're trying so often that you're producing results and quality more often than not. This is great. I think you followed along the tutorial fantastic. I love the color selection you did in the first one. And I think the same thing I will say about mine with your blue one with the oil spill is trying to create more of that texture. And it's either working with a brush or, let me see, what brush is this? I'm going to work with my chalk brush here. Grabbing the color beneath. Actually, where's my reference? Let me pull up the blue crystal here. So I think looking at yours, it's the same thing I was trying to do with mine at the end here, is grabbing that kind of neutral gray and then pulling some of those lines, those horizontal lines, and painting right on top of that oil spill color. And that will help create more of the texture and the scratches and the dips of your rock. I was going to say rock crystal, but it came out croc. And I'm like, not your croc. That's what you wear on your feet. Crocs. And just doing that everywhere. And I mean, for the color placement, when I squint, it's pretty good. Yeah, it actually is very good. I think, yeah, I see maybe you ran out of time down here with like filling that in. But I definitely think the texture and the final details are what I would work on next. Okay, next we have, and actually I should mention thank you to everyone that tried this today. I know that this was a lot, but I want to keep doing these with Josh every Wednesday, and I feel like these are fun tutorial ones. I feel like this one's definitely a little more in-depth, and it was a lot of like tutorial talk. And I think next week will be the creative one where we turn crystals into either a creature or integrate it with a character or a landscape. So that will be kind of more free and loose. And then the week after that, I want to do, I know I do this like once every year, but I want to do a hand one again. And I feel like it's something I'm always asked, especially on Instagram, like, how do you draw hands? And I think it's just going to be like a yearly thing where once a year we always are going to have 2 probably weeks of how to draw hands. So that will be probably the week after next. Okay, this one is Zadric.
Zadric says,
oh, interesting.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? I think I have to open original. I always do that. Open original. Oh, that's great. Oh, I see you kept the gray. I wish I wouldn't have given the worksheet with the darker gray. But I actually kind of like it with the darker gray now that I'm looking at how the crystals.
Yeah, the colors come out really well with it. It's like a nice contrast.
So I think I would almost. Well, no, the first one's good. I think with the pencil, it is more of a matter of if you want the pencil lines to be more gray or if you want them to have a tint of color. But that's more of a personal preference. The second one, I think this is where using brushes can get a little deceiving because as much as I do like integrating these new texture brushes, you almost want to do your best to make it look like you didn't use a texture brush. And like here, I think because there's pockets of areas where you can clearly tell the texture brush didn't hit, it looks like there was a texture brush that was thrown in. And sometimes it can look really cool when you can kind of tell it was digitally painted, but in this case, I would probably make the fractal brush bigger and do more light passes on it so it's more of a subtle fractaling effect within the crystal. And besides that, though, I think this is great. I think you did good color choices.
Ooh, I love the glow.
I know, I hope you guys had fun with the glow that pours through and out. Oh, I like how this was something I forgot to mention when I did the crystal, but right here, the reflection, you can see how technically this is the same window that it was reflected in, but because the facets are obviously two planes and they're reflecting the light at different angles, it's a slight zigzag look, and I'm glad that you caught that one.
Jonathan says heading out to the gym, so goodbye, Jonathan.
Have fun, get some good pump on. And I think with this one, I would probably just add a little more of, I can see you started to do it with like these little lines, but try not to make it too liney. I think if you do too many squiggles, it'll look like a texture squiggle. So instead, do more like angular squiggles. Oh my gosh, hold on, let me take a sip of water. I feel like I've got the hiccups coming, but like I'm repressing the hiccup.
Tim only gets hiccups like once a year too, and it's the worst.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys get like those angry hiccups. It like hurts when I hiccup. So I think with a lot of these squiggles within, unless if you want it to look like there are little flakes or little ribbons within the crystal, or if it's like a poured epoxy where it's like fake crystals, but they have glitter or something within it. Otherwise, I would have it be more straight edge and have the edges kind of collide on each other because that'll make it look more crystally. This one's fun. I think here would be like separating some of the areas where you can kind of see like some of the fractaling of the shape, but otherwise, I think this is just going to take a little more of like placing smaller details within and kind of breaking up the texture. And then same with the last one. Actually, you did a pretty good job at starting to break up the texture. I really like how you did that. I would pull even more of it and pull it within the rest of the crystal as well. So that'd be my critique for you. But good job.
This is a lot. Just
actually, yeah,
time.
Good job.
Yeah.
For anyone that did all 5 and followed along and listening to me and Josh gab the whole time, great job. I know that this is probably not the easiest thing to do.
The true heroes.
No.
So next we have Unique. I don't have a polygon lasso, so I couldn't, and I couldn't download the brush. Program doesn't support it. So I improvised both of those. Tried to emulate the brush with brushes I have. Wasn't that successful. Tried to not color pick, but had to a few times. Tim did that even too, so you're good.
I was
especially for the oil spill. Yeah.
No, this is great.
Yeah.
I think this one really speaks to me too. I think it just has a really good feel to the color and the gradient feels really nice going down. I would say on the middle crystal, maybe having a little more of the edge down here. And then I think wherever you decide to have a really highlighted plane on the crystal, I would choose that one to be the brightest and maybe not this one as much. So I would have this one be lighter. Just because if the light source is coming from overhead, usually there will be one plane that reflects the light source stronger than the other ones. So I try to have one plane that kind of represents, like on the green one, it's a perfect example where that top rectangle reflects the light the most, and the other sides kind of have this luscious, almost no reflecting of the light that can be seen as like a highlight. So you can see kind of before and after. It's like a quick minor thing, but even actually I would make it even darker. I think that's great. I can definitely tell that the fourth one was probably a little harder for most people because working purely with a texture brush and trying to create those small divots can be, I guess, harder than I initially expected. But I think going in and doing more like cuts within and like have them more diagonal and have a lot of like straight facets. I've been using the word facet a lot today, and I'm like, is that the right word for this? Sometimes I think words sound right, so I'll use them. And my old roommates specifically would call me out on this all the time, where I would use words that sound right, but they're totally not right in the context and the way that I'm using them.
I think it works. I'm not the best with it either, though, but it sounds like it works.
Yeah, me and you together are probably the worst because we're throwing words at each other. Like, yeah, you understand? You're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And then people watching are like, no, that's not the right word.
It sounds good.
So I think having more of small details within your texture will help bring it out. And I'm going to say the same thing for the last one. I think pulling a very heavy scratch mark tone to your on top of the oil spill will give it more of those defined cracks. Mm-hmm. I think when you're doing cracks within a crystal, like really go for it. And all you do, or at least for this one specifically, you can just color pick the gray that is not on the bright side of the crystal. So in this case, this whole strip right here, color, or eyedropper I should say, and literally like pull it right into the side here. So pull. You can see how it gives more of the true color of what the crack would be if it went down. And that would be my advice for you. Maybe you can see it if I'm a little closer up. See what I mean? So use color pick and then go across like that.
Actually, really like number 4. You know in video games where they'll have like, it's a teleporter or like some kind of like crack in the universe or whatever? That it looks really cool like that. Like yeah.
Oh, we have a lot today. Mm-hmm. Man, I thought we were only going to have a couple because I was like, there's a lot going on in this study today. And there's a lot to follow.
So next up we have Fem.
Oh, hey, Fem.
Fem says, they all look dirty, cloudy, and not clean enough in my opinion. Once I edit more texture on some of them. But I'm way too slow to be able to follow on Tim's speed. Tried my best.
You guys are far too critical on yourselves. I mean, I do think it's good to have a critical eye, but I don't think these are as bad as you're making them out to say. I wouldn't even call them bad. Actually, the second one feels really good. And the second one almost feels like all you have to do is add more of a highlight to it to really make it pop. So let me go ahead and edge out. I mean, I kind of like the softness of it, to be honest. But like, let's say you want to just add a little bit more of that sheen. Let's grab it, choose a little bit lighter. See how before and after, how it creates just a little bit more of that reflected light. I think in the first one, I think the details got a little lost. I think because maybe you didn't have the pencil layer set to multiply. But if something like this happens, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I actually love working on something that already has kind of the local color underneath, and all you get to do now is like edge things out. And that's what will really draw your eye to certain areas, and you can make areas pop so easily. Let's say you want to make this area kind of shine. And that's the fun part with crystals, is you can really work with your triangles. So work with your angles, work with those sharp edges, and that's where you'll see a lot of things pop out and, you know, create more of that surface texture that we want. And I think you have, I like to have things very smooth and have a nice gradient to everything, which is fine. But I think with crystals, I would even pull out some of those hard edges on top of those nice gradients. And that's what will really help give your crystal some of that harder edge look to it. And if you want to do like some of these lines that go across, you know, to kind of even accentuate, you know, the crystal flatness of it. But I definitely think maybe having more highlights in certain areas and more of those hard, harsh edges can really help you out. Even with this one, I put a little bit of the highlight there. Have it kind of gradient out. Oh, actually, I do like the one with the texture. And I think same thing with the other ones. I think it's just now down to like final detailing on top and just kind of catching edges throughout. The fifth one, though, I feel like is probably the one where I can see maybe you struggle a little bit the most. And I think it's because when you did the cracks, kind of like my last critique, I think you just have to be really confident going into it and be like, nope, there's gonna be a crack here and I'm gonna push out this edge, and that's where I want the edge of this fractal to be. And I do feel like a crystals is a lot of confidence with hard edges. So I feel like that might be the critique for most of these, is like really, you know, cutting those edges everywhere. So yeah, other than that, fam, don't be so harsh on yourself. I will say though,
gorgeous.
For the height, for the shadow area on this one, I think, let me look at the reference again just to make sure that what I'm saying is what I want to say here. Yeah, so as you can see, it's actually lighter. So like, look at this color, that's like the pure bounce light, and then look at the shadow that's right above it. You can see how when I look at the color scale here, when I switch between the two, the area with the color that bled into the shadow is actually a lighter and brighter and slightly more saturated than the actual shadow around it. So for yours, actually let me make a new layer here. I would pull some of that lightness back in. And I think you pulled in a little too much of the dark green. I think this should be more, you know what, let me redo this. I'm gonna make it more of a matte gray first. Actually, even that kind of helps. I think yours was a little too dark to begin with. And then let's pull this dark. And I think having it on this darker gray is a little deceiving. And if you ever need to do a quick shadow, something I'll do is I'll paint right over all of it, grab my eraser tool, make it a hard edge, and then paint over the crystal so you can see before and after how you can just edge it out and have that nice shadow underneath. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this lighter color. Paint right up against it, and then switch back to my eraser tool. Bam. Oops, I want to cut that edge right there. Like that. So you can see before and after how it has more of that transparency because you want it a little lighter where that color is seeping through. All right, so I hope that helps. Thank you, Fem.
Next up, we have Della Portard. Della Portard.
Oh, it's Anthony, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Anthony. I always like knowing it was Anthony. But yes, Anthony. Here are my crystals. Ooh.
So I know, I'm pretty sure you had to work on the PNG or the file that could work in the, because you couldn't work in Photoshop. So I think that's maybe where the struggle came from, because I can see some of the pixelation. But I think that was more on my end with the worksheet I gave you, and I don't know how well it imported into the software. But I think for you, I would work on, like I said, I think this is more of the pencil because it has more of those like gray edges everywhere. And I think for you to have fun with it, I would actually remove the pencil layer, because then all of these harsh edges that look like they're edged out with pencil, they can look more like this, which would, I think, help give more of that realistic look to your crystals. So you can kind of see before and after. See how it has like that edging to it, which, I mean, obviously there's some styles that have more of an edge. I definitely like to add line art to everything and have it kind of be seen. But I think, with crystals, I think removing the line art actually gives it more of a depth to it. And especially with the crystal on this side, similar to the thing that we just did with Fems, actually. And the new layer. I think pulling, kind of showcasing that shadow, I think this could really help you too. I think it was a little darker down here. Actually, I have the reference on my die. Nope, wrong reference. There we go. And it has a little bit of that greeny. So this is another example where like digital art, you can kind of be messy and then watch what will happen. So now that we have all that laid out, literally go back to my eraser tool. Oop, is that all on one layer? That's fine. And then go back to my eraser tool. And then erase all that excess. Bada bing, bada boom. So you can see how before and after, it'll make it look more like it's on a surface. And then I think for you, you might have fun grabbing like a smaller brush. And this is where I don't recommend zooming in too much. Like no more than this, I would say. But just edging out some of those edges even a bit further to really make some of those details shine. Something like that.
Ooh.
Right, just some little cracks, some crevices. And I feel like that's kind of my critique for most of them. I think, honestly, it is the edge, and I don't think this is even your fault. I think it was the file I gave for non-Photoshop users. But if I were you, I would literally go back and either take out the edge or paint right over it. And then same thing with this one with a lot of the other ones. You definitely are on the right path. I actually like how this looks. I'll just keep adding more of those crevices and cracks and that texture detail that will help give it more of that, you know, earthy feel. When you look at it, it's almost like you can imagine touching it. That's what the crystals we want to get. And then with this one, same with a lot of the other ones, pull that crack color. Well, that sounds bad. Pull the crack color. Pull the color where the scratches would go, and just be really confident with placing it right on top of areas of that crystal. Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Anthony also asked, where can I buy your brushes again?
So as of right now, I actually don't have them anywhere. I'm going to put them all on Gumroad at some point. I'll probably do like a slow release of them. But as of right now, I don't have them anywhere. I'll probably put the crystal brush up for sale next week, so you guys actually get it for free, fractal brush. But I think I'll make all my brushes just $1. Like it won't be anything crazy. But you might want to download it today, because I think after today, I'll probably pull the crystal brush out of this downloadable pack and make it so that you have to get it on Gumroad for the $1. Okay, I think this is the last one.
Last one is from Ella. I was so stressed for this one. It felt like a struggle during the whole process. I'm so used to my normal technique and brushes. This is a real challenge for me, and I started out by not color picking at first, and that just made things even harder.
It's a very hard challenge, especially on a live stream like this where you have like maybe it's a good challenge though, honestly. Because I remember yours from last week, Ella. It was very beautiful. Like the colors were very well selected. But I do think it was color picked from the reference, which is totally fine. But I think if you want to have like a deeper understanding in color, which I can kind of tell maybe you do kind of want that experience, I do think trying to challenge yourself with using the color box more. But I understand if maybe it was a little overwhelming at first, because I can obviously tell you didn't touch the first one that much. But let me look at all of these really quick. I actually really like the fifth one, which was technically the hardest. Oh, and I love how you got some of the cracks within the second one. I think yours is similar. You might not have been using Photoshop either, because I can kind of tell the paper texture was throwing you off. But yeah, I would do the same thing with Anthony's, where you literally either remove the layer with the pencil or paint over it, because I think it's a little rough on the edge there. And then at any time, if you want to add, like even if it's not the reference, I've learned that when doing crystals, adding one of these like gradation highlights where it's like a cross almost, and like where all the points meet, you add kind of the highlight part of it, and then have it kind of fade down and out. Seems to give it more of that crystally, magical, fantastical feel. And that's why I'll usually add a little bit of those tidbits here and there whenever I do crystal work.
Actually, Ella says, no, I usually never color pick, but now I just didn't have the time to pick my own and adjust them.
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, if you're already doing that, I already know your work from what I've seen you do in these live streams. Like, you're a great artist. And it's no surprise to me that the colors look great on these.
Well, yeah, I know Ella was talking to you about how you move sonic speed. I was using Photoshop, but I had no time for cleanups.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I never used to consider myself a fast artist, but I feel like in the last few years, just because I need to get things done, like even with these storybook pages, I'm trying to knock like one a day almost, or like one every other day. And I'm learning that when I need to be fast, I can usually work a little faster. But then when I'm noodling, I mean, I can just render like a hand for 4 hours, and I'm like, Tim, what are you doing? So I think like here, I would focus like where it kind of cracks off and it's not as perfect looking on the bottom of the crystal. I would put more of those highlights in that kind of imply that texture down there more. Definitely same with this one. I would definitely separate maybe at the end of adding all this texture, because I think this one had more of that rough, rocky look. So to kind of recreate that, just having more of those like textury looking brush strokes at the end. And then I actually like your rock here. I think maybe just having a few more scratches on the right side of this oil spill reflection. But otherwise, I think this is pretty good. And then same with, kind of like we were saying before, with if you want to add a few of these highlights in areas to give it like that final pop, I think it will just help, you know, create more of that dimensional look and more of that refracted light look.
Combine every word you've used today.
Yeah, geez. Clearly, I need to stop streaming. I'm just word mumbling at this point. But you can see how before and after, it will just help, you know, tighten it up a little bit more and add more of that texture. These are great. Oh, you know what? There is one more.
Oh, yay. Yeah, I'm actually really impressed how many people submitted today. Good work, everyone.
Yeah, this was a very tough day.
That was a lot in just a little bit of time, too.
And congrats, or not congrats, but good job for all those who tried the oil spill rock, because this was definitely the hardest out of all of them. And you guys did a good job with it. So on this one, looking at it, or what did they say? Sorry, I just kind of pulled it up without even hearing what they wrote.
Oh, yes. Let me get this one. I joined a little late, but here's my try. I have a lot to improve on. This is from Ellis.
No, I think you did a good job. I think, I mean, especially if you join late, having more of these hard edge kind of texture details, kind of like the critique I'm giving a lot of the submissions here, could really help, especially like defining like this highlighted surface plane on the bottom here, even the little one, and then once again, like with all of them, pulling some of the crack scratch texture into the oil spill on the right, I think could help out. I think also looking at the colors on the oil spill here, I think it's a little off on the right side. I think having that sunrise yellow, maybe even a little more yellowy and a little more brighter here, kind of winging it. So this would be an example of like looking at it and trying to pick the color without color picking. So I think the magenta is like this. And then it has that very royal looking blue before it turns into that very cyan-y looking blue. Like that. So you can see before and after. Like having more of that oil spill in it kind of curve over into the other side. And then for this one, actually I'm going to color pick this. I would make it even more bold because I can see it looks like you were a little hesitant with the color choice of being this bold of a cyan color, but I would go right in there with it and have fun with these more bold, rich blues and magentas. And it'll help give more of that effect and illusion of this oil spill. I don't even know if that's the right way to describe it, but that's just the way I see these colors. And I don't know. I think it's pretty fitting, right? I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I know it works.
All right. Thank you for validating. All right, and then finally this more sunrisey yellow. So I think once you have that gradient in place, make it a little smoother if you could, but then I would go in and put in these harsh cracks. And you can do this on a new layer if you're like, but what if I mess it up and I don't want to have to repaint it again? do the scratches on a different layer and then take it on and off and see if you like the difference. But you can see even with the colors, how they're a little more vibrant than before as well. So yeah, that would be my critique. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming to this live stream. We will be doing this again next Wednesday. Now, like I said, I think we're going to just jump right into them from now on. So we might have like 3 to 5 minute chat before the stream actually starts. But once we go live, we're going to keep it live and keep it moving. So if you want to join in these follow-alongs, try to be ready before the stream starts. And we'll give another reminder, of course, but if not, I guess we'll see you next week. And then next week will be more of the creative stream. So we're going to be drawing crystals and implementing them either in a creature, a character, or an environment. And these are basically exercising our creative muscle. So last week was our pencil technique. This week was coloring technique. And then the next week will be more of a creative exercise.
Just a little fun time next week.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm going to create. I'll probably do a few thumbnails. I'll post them in the Discord if you guys want to start thumbnailing ideas as well. Because then next week we'll just dive right into them, and then we'll kind of do like a gallery view. So it won't be as much of a critique. I mean, maybe a little bit. I'll give like pointers of where you could take the direction in. But I think next week will be more of a fun, like, what did you guys come up with integrating crystals into your work? So that will be next week. So yeah, any last remarks, Schwa?
I don't think I have anything today. Just everyone, thank you for coming. Thanks for submitting your stuff too. It's always fun seeing everyone's different takes on things, even too.
Yeah, no, this was great. And thanks for everyone for submitting today. I know this one was definitely the hard one, kind of like the hairy one we did it the first week. So thank you guys for submitting. And I'm losing my voice.
I'm really excited for next week, though. I think next week's going to be really fun, just seeing more.
Oh, I think so too.
Right? Because you all are so creative, so it's going to be really fun to see what everyone comes up with. I'm actually really looking forward to next week.
And actually, this is very relevant to it. Corey Godby's whole looking at creating a concept is look at your idea like a prism, which is very topical. But whatever idea you have, like let's say you want to have an earth creature who has crystals coming out of his back or whatever, like, okay, if that's your concept, look at it from every direction. Like, what if it's an amethyst creature versus a citrine creature? Like, what would the differences be? And start to, like, before you even put the pencil to paper, like, start to develop ideas in your head and let those flow and free or fly free in your mind until, like, something really sticks and you're like, oh, no, that's really cool. Because sometimes your first idea isn't going to be your best idea. And we'll kind of reiterate that next week as well. But besides that, I mean, we have the Kickstarter coming out in April for my new book. And I think that's mostly all the updates we got. Yeah, I think that's all we got. So thank you again, as always, for coming to these. And hopefully we'll see you next week for more of these follow-along tutorials and live streams. So thank you. Thank you. And until next week. All right, take care, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.